Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood. I'm welcomed here by Danny Haiphong. First time on the show, but I really like your work at Black Agenda Report and your show. I just started to check that out. And you can see what all of Danny's credits are below. If you're not familiar with his work, please start following what he's doing, because it's important now more than ever. We talked about the last week or so, like, oh, we got to get you on the show. And, it's like, gee, I wonder what we're going to talk about. Well, here we are. So I don't even know where to begin, but I mean, I'll say this at the top. I did not think, and I've done videos on this, I did not think Putin was going to do this. I did not think he was going to bomb. And I really am shocked that he did this. And I don't want to see war anywhere. But we have to have a broader conversation than the corporate, because according to CNN today, and on the front page of the newspaper this morning, just in bold caps, it said invasion. I mean, they're acting like this is 9/11 or Pearl Harbor. They're acting like Putin just sent 100,000 troops across the border and all hell's breaking loose. And I'm going to show this in a second, but what we're not seeing is that actually Putin has bombed U.S. NATO military installations and bioweapons and stuff like that. So, and in this crazy era, two things can exist at once. So if I'm critical of the United States involvement in this, oh, I love Putin, I'm a Putin puppet, I love war. I'm sure you've been called whatever else for that kind of stuff.
Everything. Yeah.
So, but the thing that's driving me insane is one, that just like narrative that, Putin has just gone bananas. No mention of the United States backing neo-Nazis in the Ukraine as far back as 2014 under the Obama administration. And no mention of this map that we've all seen. I've shown it on my show. I'm sure I'll show it again today, of all the American bases surrounding Russia. I mean, there's no way on this earth, Danny, if there was just one Russian base in Canada or Mexico, we would lose our shit. Like, so, as someone who's been covering this, what do you make of all this, and how do you see this playing out?
Well, I was going to bed last night, and a lot of this news started to come out about the Russian invasion. And a lot of the news was very cryptic. It was very vague. It was explosions were happening in Kiev. And it seemed like just minutes after Vladimir Putin announced that Russia was going to aid the Donetsk People's Republic and the Lugansk People's Republic at their request, because they asked for more aid. And all of the reactions, similar to the reactions to just a few days ago, where Vladimir Putin came out with a statement saying that he was going to send peacekeepers to that region, that was seen by, a broad spectrum, honestly, of the United States' population, especially even the left, even some people who call themselves the left, saw that as this term invasion, as you said. There's an invasion happening without any attention to the context that you mentioned, Graham. There's even a more specific context that isn't being mentioned, and that is what's happening in eastern Ukraine. Why are these breakaway republics asking for Russian assistance? What has been happening over the last 8 years that would cause these breakaway republics, which are vast majority Russian-speaking, identified as Russian, why would they ask for this help? And it's because there has been a so-called civil war happening there that has been aided, abetted, and backed by the United States. The United States has sent, I think, $650 million worth of military aid alone to the Ukraine all of which has gone to either the Ukrainian military or these so-called paramilitary groups, which several of whom are far-right fascistic groups like the Azov Battalion, which is fighting in eastern Ukraine and is deeply involved in the tens of thousands of people that have been killed or displaced there. UN statistics say that the vast majority of those 80% over this period are non-government controlled areas, people who live in these non-government controlled areas. So that means there is an outright war happening right on Russia's borders. And we've had several months now where the United States has been stoking it. And we can go back to the 2014 coup, of course, because it's so important to provide that context. The United States providing aid to a certain section of this so-called Maidan revolution, which inevitably not only overthrew the government, but also helped bring these far-right fascist armed groups into the National Guard. So even though there are a lot of people who will tell me now and who are saying all in my replies and responding to my work saying, oh, well, there aren't far-right fascist groups in parliament anymore, right? Because they were there after the coup, an unelected coup, right? That overthrew a democratically elected government in 2014. And then in 2019, they didn't win any seats, supposedly. But the damage had already been done, and they are embedded in the very defense forces of this coup government. So it's neither here nor there whether they're officially in parliament or not. They are dictating policy. And it's obvious that they're dictating policy because the civil war has not ended and there is no prospect for it to end, which leads us to the conclusion that a big reason why Russia is doing what it's doing right now is because all of the options, the other options, have been exhausted. Russia, over and over and over again, over the past several months, has asked the United States to stop interfering, has requested the demilitarization of the region, has asked the United States to stop pursuing NATO membership for Ukraine, and the United States snubbed Russia each and every time. And so I think the real question here is what is driving the emotional response to this? Because I think at just the basic level, our position should be on the left. And anyone who considers themselves in favor of peace, it should be the United States doesn't even belong in this region at all. It has no jurisdiction legally under international law over what Ukraine does, over what Russia does, over how countries in this region develop and decide to determine their own destinies. None at all. But that's not even in the conversation. The conversation is Russia is invading. Russia is the aggressor. Russia is an imperialist country, right? That's the narrative right now. And it's damaging because it has nothing to do with the facts on the ground, the context that we need to know, and the situation at hand, which requires us to call for the United States, like in most cases, to end its endless wars. That's what is really at heart here. But it's so easy in this new Cold War environment when Russia responds to years of provocations to say, oh, now Russia is doing the wrong thing. But it's like, put yourself in Russia's shoes. You mentioned some things. You mentioned the huge expansion of NATO along its borders. It's 3 countries alone, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, right on Russia's borders. And this isn't even to mention that Ukraine shares a long border with Russia. In nearly all of the fighting that is going on in Ukraine is right along Russia's border. So Russia is surrounded by NATO and US weaponry bases and aggressive paramilitary groups backed by the United States. The CIA is literally admitted to training these groups, paramilitary groups in Ukraine since 2015, and they're fighting along Russia's border. What would you do if you were Russia? I ask those who are so judgmental and think that Russia is bringing the world to the brink of World War III. No, that's the United States is doing, and it's an ongoing process which has been virtually ignored by most people.
Well, there it is. There's the answer. Everything you've just laid out That none of that. I mean, none of that is covered by the corporate media. None of it. I mean, it's so in order for someone, the average American, to know what you're talking about, they would have to dig deep, which I mean, you see the whole when a war pops off like this, you really see the long con of the ruling elites and the military industrial complex. So this is like, you have Americans who have to work themselves to the bone. They don't have the time to like dig deep and find stuff. They've done a great job of fake news and using, QAnon, January 6th to say anything outside of the corporate media is lies. And they can say, oh, look at how much Fox News lies. Sure, Fox News lies all the time, but then nobody calls out the lies of CNN and MSNBC, and they're doing, or when they do, it only comes from Fox. So then it's this perfect, they keep the country divided, distracted, and afraid. They do a great job. You got to pick a team. You red or you blue, you Fox or you MSNBC. You know what I mean? Pick one. Are you vaccine or you ivermectin? Like, just pick a team, and you there's no subtlety. So all of this stuff. I mean, I've even had to like do some digging because I haven't been following Ukraine as much, just because I'm just one guy doing a show in his apartment. I can't follow everything, but all that stuff you're laying out, no one is talking about the 8 years that these separatist regions who are identified with Russia have been being bombed by the Ukrainian government with help from the United States. No one's talking about that. Everyone just, and this is the standard American war machine propaganda. We're just sitting here, just, all barbecuing in our backyards, and then crazy Putin just comes in and just throws a bomb in our swimming pools, and we got to react. And it's just like, I mean, this keeps happening in America, just keep drinking this Kool-Aid, and they won't look into any of this. And I've posted today too, on all my social media platforms, and I've put it on this show. So the defense industry, if you go to opensecrets.org, and anybody watching, go right now and just put in the search defense industry, and then look at 2020. So in 2020 campaign, they donated a total of $49 million to Republicans and Democrats. And I think it was like 52-48 Republican to Democrat. So pretty evenly down the line. $3.1 million to Joe Biden's campaign, 2.7 to Trump. They just said, whoever gets in there, we're going to have war. I mean, shit, they gave $800,000 to Bernie Sanders, which was like, broke my heart to read. So like people, and this, they know how to prey upon people's emotions, and they know how to just go invasion and the ticker. And then they show the like old woman next to the bombed out building, and that preys on your emotions. And I'm not saying that Putin's bombs haven't hurt anybody or are good. I'm not a fan of any bombing. I've been to war zones in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it's awful. I've seen what it does. And you know who gets hurt the most? It's innocents. It's innocent women and children. But then what drives me insane is America and Joe Biden giving that crazy speech today, and the media just lockstepping in to like, I'm sorry, I don't know, Yemen? The 20 years of bombing America has done in the Middle East since Putin got into power right around year 2000, right? He's been in power about 20 some years, which 9/11, so the global war on terror has been happening for basically the totality of Putin's in power. Add it up. How many people has Putin bombed and murdered to the America? Add it up, baby, because we are number one, as always. And I just can't sit here and watch America, even if everything the American media said about Putin is true. Let's just say, for argument's sake, oh, he's this evil dictator. He wants to take over the world. He's ex-KGB. He wants to bring back the Soviet Union. Okay, let's say that's all true. The numbers are the numbers. No one has dropped more bombs than we have in the last 20 years. I mean, look at goddamn Afghanistan. I mean, it's like, it's maddening to me to hear this, and Americans just swallowed up, and then good old neoliberals, if a Democrat's in the White House, man, do they love war. It's okay when a Democrat does war. And it's like, I mean, shit, I could go on and on. I mean, it's just like, and this is Joe Biden has the lowest approval rating. He has an approval rating lower than Trump ever had. And here we are, like, it's so frustrating. So I guess my question to you, and this is the frustration of all of us in indie media, like, how do we get, we post stuff on social media and we get called Kremlin stooges or whatever, whatever madness, whatever crazy things we've all been called. We have friends of ours. I'm sure you have good, smart, college educated liberal friends of yours that think you're, whatever, you've helped Trump or Putin or whatever nonsense. Like, how do we combat this?
Well, I think that there are many ways that we can combat it, but there's a definite relationship between, I think, the overall geopolitical and world situation and the limitations, right, that we face in the United States, in the current political situation and state that the United States is in. So, given how stagnant things are right now, I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. After the 2020 Bernie Sanders campaign ended in a sputter, ended in disaster, it's quite clear that there's a lot of confusion right now about what exactly does it mean to be a leftist? What does it mean to stand for peace? What does it mean to address these monumental crises like COVID-19, the latest capitalist crisis, these endless wars, right? People are struggling at such an intense degree, as you mentioned. And this is one of the worst periods, I think, for the United States since the Great Depression, since the 2007 2008 crisis. And then you add a public health calamity on top of that. And it's quite easy for vulnerable people to be taken on wild political rides. And I think that's what a lot of people are on right now, and trying to figure out how to understand the crises before them as they deal with their own personal crises, their own experiences and conditions of exploitation. And so, what we can do, I think, is we can continue to work together and build solidarity among each other and find ways to plug into both organized efforts as well as broader media campaigns and all sorts of ways to get the message of peace out there and to truly educate people in the United States and the West, because that's really where the big gap is, right? A lot of the world, especially the progressive forces in the world, do not agree with US policy, see the United States as the biggest threat to world peace correctly. However, during COVID-19 and over the course of even just say the Obama, Trump, Biden era, there's been a huge political shift to the right. So much so that you have more than 2/3 of people in the United States who view Russia and China as the principal threat to their own, to their own security. They view Russia and China so unfavorably that it's quite hard from that perspective to challenge these policies, even though it is the dominant agenda of the dominant foreign policy agenda of the United States. So we need to really unmask what that agenda is, because it's so easy. And this dates very far back. This is nothing new. The way that Russia has been treated, especially since Russiagate beginning the Obama era, where it seemed like all of these attempts to make Russia into some kind of vassal state were starting to unravel. So the United States made a geopolitical and national security state strategic decision to say, okay, now Russia is in the great power competition camp. It is in the enemy camp. And the same went for China, as China has developed and charted its own course of development. So what we really need to do is start to unmask this agenda, and to do so in a way that's non-discriminatory. Because what I've noticed a lot is that a lot of the ways in which we talk about this new Cold War against Russia and China that the United States is waging, it often focuses on one or the other. It almost reinforces this wedge theory that the United States' military brass have been talking about for a long time. How do we pit Russia and China against each other? And so a lot of the ways we focus on US provocations toward Russia and China tend to be separate and tend not to see the global view, the world's view of what exactly is going on. And when we start to peel back this agenda, when we start to ask, well, why is the United States militarizing the Asia Pacific at the degree that it is? Why is it surrounding Russia with all of these military bases? Why is it waging all these proxy wars, Hong Kong, Syria, for example?
Mhm.
Why is it doing that? And then when we start to unmask the why, which is to contain Russia and China, they say it outright. Foreign Policy magazine published a hit piece that from one of the Atlantic Council, NATO's think tank, from one of their fellows, which directly stated that Washington needs to wage war against Russia and China simultaneously. And that's been the policy, right? It's been the policy in a new Cold War sense, right? A consortium of various policies, from sanctions to diplomatic strangulation and provocations, to proxy wars within and outside of the borders, from the propaganda war, Russiagate, lab leak, to Xinjiang human rights, all of this, right? It's a consortium of policies that is meant to drive further militarization, to satisfy the war profiteers, and to arrest what is an inevitable development, that the United States' role in the world is going to decline. It already is on the decline. Its dominance is unraveling. It is a much weaker country objectively than it was even just 20 years ago, 22 years ago, 21 years ago, when George W. Bush announced the global war on terror. These last 2 decades have been marked by imperial decline. The United States cannot get its way in the same form or in the same way that it was in the past. It was able to in the past. And that's because there is a different pole in the world. There are other countries like China and Russia being in the lead of this, but other countries as well across Latin America and Eurasia that are saying, no, we can do things ourselves. We're not going to exclude the United States. If the United States wants to be an equal partner, if it wants to engage in a way that's mutually beneficial, sure. That's been Vladimir Putin's line since 2001. And only since around the last 10 years has there been a huge shift in how the Russian government is viewed. But nonetheless, the United States sees that as a threat. It sees any independent activity, expression of self-determination as a direct threat, because that means that there's a possibility that these countries will, in economic negotiations, in economic relations, in political relations, they will begin to assert themselves as equals. And that's really what is at the heart of all of this. The United States says, I want to see China grow the way it is, and to say, oh no, we can have this policy agenda, and certainly we'll have economic relationship with you, but that relationship is not going to dictate what we do. Russia has been doing something very similar as well, different in form, but similar on that basis. And all of the countries that have allied with Russia and China and have come out even for Russia's support for these breakaway republics, Nicaragua, Cuba, they're thinking the same way. Okay, we'll have relationships with the United States, but the United States is treating us like second-class citizens of the world, sanctioning us, starving us, threatening us with coups and wars. So we're going to go with countries that respect us and that respect our right to politically and economically determine our destinies. And that's at the heart of this whole issue, this whole ongoing development with Ukraine, is how does the United States make the world in its image, and how does it keep Ukraine and the whole region, because this is a regional war that the United States is waging, keep that whole region within its orbit and underneath its thumb, so that it will obey all these governments across the former Soviet republics, Eastern Europe, and we can go beyond that, right? Really anywhere where there's a possibility where Russia, even Libya, right? Libya was destroyed, but the United States is still very worried that even Libya's very chaotic situation, that government, whatever is left of it, will have relations of any kind with Russia, right? So it's really all about containment, isolation, and maintaining this hegemony that the United States is so invested in, because without it, really everything begins to unravel. Now, it's not just the legitimacy anymore. It is the real power that the US has to determine affairs everywhere.
To add this, I mean, every country you just mentioned has gotten off the petrodollar. I mean, China got on the petro-yuan. They got rid of the petrodollar. China and Russia said, you know, we're gonna do oil. Let's not forget the oil component of this. I mean, this is, you talk about American hegemony. It's about the petrodollar and exerting its financial clout, and it has a massive military to back its, basically, you know, we're just like some sort of loan sharking mob with a massive army behind us is basically what we do. And it's so like Gaddafi said, we're getting off the petrodollar. Saddam Hussein, we're getting off the petrodollar. Syria said, I mean, all of this is tied in, and there, you know, there's more specifics to each region, but overall the petrodollar has so much to do with this. Russia and China have pipelines together. Russia wants to do this Nord pipeline to Germany. And we've come in and said, I just did a video on this like 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago. We said, well, we don't want Germany. You can't get that pipeline because it's cheaper. So we're going to give you American oil, which will be more expensive. So that's another thing. Like, that's one of Russia's chief exports is oil. And that's no good, because I mean, that's what the pipeline through Syria is, to get to Western Europe. That's like one of the biggest oil markets in the world. And that's why we didn't like that pipeline, because we wanted Saudi oil, and Syria said, no, you can't have that pipeline. So we're like, oh, Syria is bad. And then that's another country that we've destabilized and all that. So it's really like so much of this. And then the selling of it to the American people is always on these sort of like patriotic heartstrings and freedom. And like, how many innocent civilians have American presidents, including Obama, murdered with their unintended targets? You know, 90% of our casualties, you know, Obama dropped more bombs than Bush. Bush started an illegal war, and everyone, the anti-war movement was all in the streets, and that was great. And then Obama came into office and, oh, I'm going to get rid of these wars. And then he just dropped more bombs, and everyone was too busy at brunch to give a damn. And now all of a sudden, you know, we're just acting like we're just these innocent bystanders, and big bad Putin is you know, swinging his big gun around and terrifying everybody. Which is just like, it's so, but you bring up such excellent points, and basically it is sort of our duty in the indie media to just try to get the nuance to this, and the stuff that the corporate media isn't talking about out there in the mainstream, to get people to sort of to wake up to this. So, I mean, hey everybody, thanks for watching. We are still in our like 9th month of demonetization from YouTube. So support what we're doing at patreon.com/Graham Elwood or rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, which is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. It's free to sign up, and there's a premium level at $10 a month. And for that, you get everybody on the platform's premium content. Myself, Lee Camp, Ron Placone, Jimmy Dore, Whitney Webb, Kim Iverson, Abby Martin, and many, many others. You can also support what we're doing at Venmo at Graham-Elwood, and go to GrahamElwood.com. We have a PayPal button and a PO box. I also have crypto wallets, which are all in the show notes. Thanks for supporting what we do.